Okay, this is my first attempt at a video on car repairs. I usually am working on my own cars, particularly Ford SUVs like Explorers and Expeditions. But today I'm trying to tackle my girlfriend's car here for it's a 2010 Jetta 2.5 liter engine. Now I know there's other classifications. I'll try to dig those up and post it into this video and the details on it. But what the thing is today that I'm going to do is, it's at about 110,000 miles on this car, and looking at, just flushing the coolant as best I can, and quickly too, just to service it. The overflow bottle, I'm going to go ahead and take it out and actually flush it separately. It has a lot of buildup in it, and I don't think that this car's ever been flushed or anything, and she's had it now for about 3 years, and just trying to get some general maintenance done. And real quickly on here for the overflow bottle and tackling it, there's on the radiator itself, there is no upper access point on here, so the overflow is part of the pressurized system. So you do have, I believe, some type of return line here, and then you have the send line that will feed into the system. It seems fairly simple to take this out and flush it, and but I'm going to do that after I drain a little bit from the radiator itself with the lower hose. Now I will say the lower hose on this side, not sure if you can see all the way down there. Let's see, there it is, right about there, I believe. And the clamp, you can see the outline of the clamp right at the tip of my finger. The clamp itself, actually, the access point to grab onto the two angled pieces were actually on top. So earlier this morning I had drained it once already, and from underneath it is easy to access that and just flip it around with a pair of pliers there. So what I've done so far is, yes, I have gone ahead and I have drained it once and filled it up with distilled water. We drove it around a little bit this afternoon. I just kind of want to get a little bit more water in there to flush things around. I didn't add any chemicals or anything like that, but I'm going to try to demonstrate some of the things here. Now I will say, in the morning, when I did my first flush, here's the access panel to remove. I set it aside so I could wash it down and get some of the grime off of it. I used the degreaser and sprayed it off on this side. And I still probably will hit this side real quick, let it dry in the sun. So I'll probably hit that and get some of that grime right off there, just to make it a little bit cleaner job. When I did drain it this morning, though, just drain the radiator, and I was only able to get out, a little bit over half a gallon. I put the remainder in the gallon, what I was able to drain. Just very little spillage that I had, so a little bit over half. Now I will say that I did have this car up on ramps, just the front end. I had it on level ground in the garage, and I did have it up on a ramp right there, so able to, raise it probably about 8 inches off the ground in the front. Gave me good access to get that panel off, and to wheel around lay down on the creeper and get in there and start accessing that stuff. Right now, because I was able to only get a half gallon out, I've decided to go ahead and to kind of get this car on the sloped driveway. I don't know if you can really see how sloped it is. But right now, there's probably a difference of about 6 inches between the tire levels, or better. That I just wanted to drain more towards that front of the car. I'm hoping to get out at least a gallon. They say that this cooling system, the best I could tell in this 2010 2.5, is that its coolant capacity is supposed to be 10 quart. Okay, real quickly, because that it is summertime, temperature around 90 degrees or so. What I'm going to do is, we drove the car earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and start trying to cool down the area that I'm going to work on. You know, even if the temperature, you know, if it's slow to cool off, you know, down to like something that's workable and not scalding, I'm just going to go ahead and shoot the radiator from my hands. You know, hopefully get it down to, you know, if it does cool off, hopefully get it down to, you know, something workable where it's not going to be scalding, like down to about 120. You know, just to get it into a workable condition of just, you know, letting it cool down a little bit and squirting it around. Try not to get the fan motors too much, but definitely, you know, the lower radiator hose, just trying to get in the clamp. You can see down there, trying to get that cooled down a little bit without getting too many electronics. You can feel that steam coming off from being. But I'm gonna work on that just a little bit more. Give it just a little bit of time cooling off, and then get to the hose. Okay, I did move the clamp back off the hose there from the neck. This model, you can see the hose there connected to neck. Now on this radiator, this is looking straight up at the lower radiator hose neck on the radiator. The thing is that this does not have a drain, a petcock or any type of drain on it. It is, you know, in some of the videos I do see that people are able to drain it. Not sure what model or anything. They don't make mention of that kind of stuff, and so that's why I want to be real exact on what model we're working on here. But I moved it back a little bit. Oh, let me see here. I'm sorry, there's just the neck. There's the hose. The hose, that's the neck with the hose right there, right about in the middle of the screen. And then if we look back, you know, I did move that clamp right there. I did move it back quite a few inches. That way I could get my hand up there, twist it a little bit more, and start letting it drain. But that's what I'm going to do next. And, you know, I am curious after I do drain it. I do want to measure it. I do want to measure it and see how much actually drains. Alright, well, I got it draining now into the drain pan. You know, the thing is, this does get to be a little bit of a sloppy job, and as water, the coolant does splash around, because as you slide that hose off of the neck, what's draining out of the neck is basically you know, spilling with force onto the hose, and then what is coming out of the hose is splashing back onto the neck. So it does splash off those surfaces quite well. Make sure you have a pretty round container that's centered quite well to handle that splash. You know, I do believe that they say that coolant is toxic to the touch, but most of us are, you know, kind of doing these jobs without the gloves. I didn't bring my nitrile gloves with me today to work, or my mechanics gloves or anything. So, you know, constantly wash my hands right afterwards and stuff to get that coolant off. But I'm going to let this drain for a while. You know, hopefully I'm going to measure it soon. You know, the one thing is, when you're doing this, especially like on the ground like I am, you know, that when you are backing that hose up, you know, you're constantly twisting and pulling, and you're pulling on that neck, and it's just something you do want to be careful of. I mean, every time I kind of twist and pull, and I think I hear a little bit of a creak or anything like that, and you know, it just scares me that, you know, hopefully I'm not putting any stress, too much stress on that neck, or causing some fractures or anything like that into that plastic neck at all. So time will tell on that, but you know, doing it here, like I said, you know, on the ground or anything like that, it really sucks. I guess that it might be better, you know, to put it on four ramps, get it up in the air, even on a flat surface or something like that, that you have a little bit more room underneath. I barely have room under this at all to do this, and that's what concerns me. So, you know, hopefully I don't put any undue stress on that radiator. But I'm going to let it drain, because I'm trying to get the most out as possible to get a good measurement on what's pulled out. Okay, while that's on be draining, I'm gonna try to get this cleaned out here. Hopefully, you know, I just don't know if you could see how you can see the one plastic stand over there, how white that is, but then the whole base right there, there's a good shot inside. Just all that gunk, all that residue, all this residue. Look at that right there's a good example. Try to get that camera lens in there a little bit better, but you can see on the right hand side there all that residue on where it's clear and where it's flaking off and stuff. Just want to get a hose in here with some power, flush this out, and you know, not get any of that gunk into the car. Now what they do say, I did see a video, they're saying that to remove this, the filler neck on the washer fluid, and they said that there was like three bolts here. They said this is going to be one 10 millimeter. I imagine they're meaning this one back here, and then that one back there. If you could see it, go ahead and I'll be removing this. This hose just kind of, this line kind of just pops out of the holders, and then there's some Torx heads, one there and one on the, down below this. There's another one. Then that's able to come out. I'll be removing this hose clamp and just leaving that hose there, and then this connector, electrical connector. And what I'll do is I'll then tilt it up, I believe, and then as I tilt it up and such, I could go ahead and remove the bottom hose down there. You can see it down there. Remove the bottom hose down there from the overflow bottle, and that hose wraps around here to go into the lines there. There's lines underneath of this. So that's my next job that I'm going to do is take this out and clean it up. I got this off. I just kind of wanted to show you that you know, what kind of sediment is in there. I'm going to clean it up now. I will say I was able to get this off. Seemed it was going to be a little tricky to get to these two bolts on the filler neck for the washer fluid. With a little bit of wiggling, definitely this radiator or coolant overflow bottle is able to come out without too much hassle. So I say just go ahead and just take it out on its own. Well, kind of done cleaning it up. You can kind of see you know, just there's a ring, you know, kind of sits in there. Say this is the front of the car, kind of sits in there this way. You kind of see that there's still a ring. It's really hard. I try to get the nozzle, you know, hose nozzle down there. See the areas that the nozzle was able to really penetrate to, kind of cleaned up, except for that one little, the drain at the bottom has like a tunnel that it goes through to come out here. But you know, putting the hose through here, clean that nozzle out, clean the other nozzle out. But just some, you know, that heavy ring from where the level had been for probably years and years, just everything kind of, any sediment floating to the top and things like that, just staining it. But you know, being that it has 110,000 miles on it, and you know, it's not going to be perfect, but you know, definitely got out probably 95% of all the sediment or better. That ring is really thin inside anyway. You know, I did fill it up, try to close out, you know, plug up the holes on the main hole there, and then the drain at the bottom, kind of shake it around, trying to get some of that stuff loosened up. But I'm going to go ahead and reinstall it now and start bringing the system back up. Next thing after I reinstall this, probably putting the hose back on the lower hose, and then going ahead and starting to fill the system up. But I do need to put the hose on, take that old coolant out, and measure the old coolant. Okay, just kind of want to point out as I'm getting ready to put this back in, you know, anytime you have access to these areas, and usually there's going to be little twigs and leaves and everything like that. We don't live in an area that has heavy foliage or anything like that, so you know, that's about a couple needles in there, some type of pine or something. But definitely, you know, as I put this back, first thing I'm going to do is reconnect this lower line there. Reconnect the lower line, kind of get it to fit in. You know, hold those hoses up and pull the neck forward a little bit and drop that down. I don't have a tripod with me right now. I don't know if I could angle this in very well for a good look, but I'll try to leave it kind of run and see how it looks on, so you can see what I am kind of doing here. Let's see how it goes. All right, that might be a good angle right there. Now this hose clamp was really kind of more at the top here. Kind of get it back over in there. So get that over and there it goes. Let's see if I can get that lined up a little bit more to where, yeah, the clamp itself was at the top. Let's try to get it right around there. Feels a little bit good that you could move it around a little bit if we need to twist it to get it to fit into the mold. How it was molded for here. You know, kind of get it in here. I think the go ahead and let's see. Pull it up, pull this neck forward just a tad, not too much stress on there. Get that done. Now this back hose, that's where got to put a little bit of maneuver here, not too much. I don't know what's underneath of it. Feels like wires. You know, anytime working on anything, you know, just gotta really pay attention to the stress, and sometimes I make a mistake myself and get a little bit too much stress on something, and then I'm looking at replacing more parts, and you want to kind of avoid that. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and put these mounting torque heads in here, and this required, let's see here, I got these required a torque, it's cut off. Maybe T21, T25, I think a T25 torque in here. This back one seems to be more of the one you don't have the best access to for your fingers. Always helps if you have something magnetic on your torque head. Screwdriver, and be kind of in there a little bit. Let's try to get it kind of angled around with a little bit of pressure from here. It is a little bit magnetic. Try to get it fit in there. The hard part is I am working at an angle, not straight up and down on that torque screw. Alright, let's try this one here. Pull this hose out a little bit. This is a little bit more straight up and down for me. I can get the into the hole properly. Get that one bolted down. And then the next one. Kind of going at an angle with the screwdriver just to try to get that thing straight up and down into that tap into the hole. Get that back on. My sensor back on. This is right side up. Yep. There it is there. Alright, finish up the overflow, top overflow hose, whatever it is, going for. I just haven't spent too much time really learning this engine, the design. So I may get some of the nomenclature incorrect. Exactly what line is what. Hold that in and get that going right back into the same, right around the same type position that it was in previously, as that's kind of worn. This seems a little, there it goes, that's back into place. Got my cap here. Don't want to forget the washer fluid cap, and that looks a heck of a lot better than what it had. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, leave that open. Well, I went ahead and I measured what was drained out, and I got just a little bit over a gallon. You know, here's what I drained out in the morning. It looks a little bit darker just because I had oil in the one catch that I was using. It's darker just because there was a little bit of oil in there. But you know, I got a gallon, and I got maybe not even a quart. So I got probably under 5 quarts out of a 10-quart system. I'm not real happy with that. So what I wound up doing is I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to try to get that diluted a little bit more to flush more of that old coolant out. I mean, it's 7 years old, 110,000 miles on it. I went ahead and just put in 1 gallon of distilled water. So we're going to run the car again. I've got the hose on and everything like that down there, clamped it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this this evening. We're going to go going out shopping for a little bit, and then later on, right before sunfall or sunset, I will go ahead and to drain it one more time. I do hope to get at least a gallon out. Once I get that gallon out, I'm going to fill it up. Hopefully I get about 5 quarts out, really, because then what I want to do is I want to get that 1 quart of pure antifreeze, put it in there, and maybe hopefully add another quart of of distilled water, and that'll be 5 quarts added. So if I could get 5 quarts out, put the 5 quarts in again, that should make me happy for a good flush on the system. That most of the old coolants increasingly taking more and more out, and diluting the system with new fresh distilled water first. So hopefully that in the end, that I only have 1 quart of old coolant total that may still be in the mixture, of the previous mix. Hopefully 1 quart to 2 quarts of previous antifreeze, and then hopefully, it drains some out where I could put 5 quarts in, which should bring the dilution of antifreeze to coolant hopefully around 50-50, but definitely if I get that whole quart in there, then or a whole gallon of coolant, then I know at least it's 40% coolant, 60% water at the most, but with some residue that I imagine it's going to be about 45 to close to 50% coolant. Some of that being old, but being in the environment that we're in, that's pretty sufficient of a balance to help guard against the freezing conditions that we face, which really don't go below 30 degrees. It's very rare for us to get up into the mountains or anything where it's a lot colder, like 20 degrees. But even still, the temperature wise, and then on the heat side, with the motor getting hot in the middle of summer when it's over 100 degrees, 40% should be doing it, 45% should be fine. But I'll check the charts again, but I'm gonna be happy and content with that once I get it done tonight. So I'll make another video when I drain it again and see what I end up with it. The one thing about this, when I did go into the parts stores and stuff, or try to find it, first of all, we don't have an owner's manual for this car. Girlfriend bought it used and didn't have that. But definitely going in to the dealer, I asked him one thing. One, I need the proper coolant. I didn't want to keep having to research online. I kept researching and not getting really good answers on capacities and stuff like that wherever I looked. But definitely I went into the dealer, said just give me the coolant for it. It's like 28 bucks at the dealer, and cheapest you can find online is like 21 or something like that. So no big deal. I mean, I'll pay $7 to go into local dealer, just so I have them for periodic advice and everything like that. But on this coolant, I asked him for the capacity so I could buy 50%, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about that." He goes, "This gallon, this gallon should be sufficient." I'm kind of disappointed in that. I wish he would have said it's 10. I wish he would have looked it up and said it's 10 quarts. Here's 5. Buy this for 28 bucks, and if the additional quart was just a, I don't know, maybe. Sometimes they'll charge $10, but at least I would have been able to buy a quart on its own, get exactly 50%, and do and get 50% in there, a brand new coolant. Probably I might have done another, like 4 flushes on this to get most of that stuff out with distilled water. Look, the distilled water, look, that's only like $1 a gallon for distilled water at Kmart, or not at Kmart, at Walmart. So you know, definitely, you know, distilled water above everything else. Just use that. You know, I don't run anymore. You know, back before it was really popular and stuff, when I worked at a shop back in the 80s and 90s, definitely we always just used the hose and just filled up with tap water. Absolutely not anymore. No matter what the flush is, I don't even like to use the city water for the flush. Even if I ran the system and kept it full and flushed it out and all that other jazz. You know, right now I'm kind of more of a, you know, drain, run, or drain, fill, run, repeat. Just to get that out, especially if it's easy enough, which this car is kind of easy, just to lower that, get that hose off and do it. Just to do a real good flush and get like a lot of the particles out. Now, if I show you, you know, I don't know if you can really see all that well here, but definitely right there you can see some of those little flakes in there. You know, that's why I just continue like flushing it, is get all the flakes out as possible. We used to run like a cleaner through the system when we did flushes, but I'm not over. You know, I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I just never really got into that. You know, whether or not it, you know, I believe more if you're on a regular basis, that might help, and if you're able to flush the system quite well, you know, to get almost, you know, it 100% flushed out, then I would use a chemical or something like that. But you know, due to the age of vehicles and flaking and how, you know, once one thing in the cooling system starts wearing out and develops a leak or something, then it just snowballs from there. Then other components that comprise a part of the cooling system, they all just start to go in dominoes on things. So I don't like to really agitate the system too much, especially if it's an older vehicle or anything like that. I prefer just, you know, a simple drain it, fill it, run it, and then repeat. You know, drain it, fill it, drain it again, and then the last time is absolutely set the mixture ratio correctly. So as I said, tonight again I'm going to run this. We're going to go to the store. I'll probably get about 10-15 miles on this. Some decent drive time. Thermostat should open. Everything should circulate quite well. Drain it again and hopefully measure out at least 5 quarts. I'll make another video here again soon. Okay, we're back from taking out and driving. Since we got back, I drove it for probably about 25 minutes or so. Got a couple miles on there. Just not too many stop and go kind of city traffic in a way. But what I did since I came back is I went ahead and I drained it again. I only got out about 3 quarts when I drained it, so I wasn't real happy with that. Again, I wasn't happy with the color, so I went ahead and I put in another gallon of distilled water. I picked some more up just because I really want to get this, you know, the color out and the flush out, and you know, really get it kind of a little bit better water in there. But anyway, I start filling it back up. I need to probably top it up a little bit. Let it run here in a minute. So altogether, I'm going to walk you through the colors of the coolant so far that we got. It's going to be dusk right now, so hopefully the colors are going to be, you know, some you could tell the difference of. So the one on the left one here, it does have oil in it because the oil, the catch basin that I used had some oil residue in there that I wasn't aware of. So it's kind of a little bit discolored, and you can see the oil floating on top. The first time, like I said, I only got about a little bit over, you know, half a gallon out. With a little bit of spillage, I imagine I probably got about 3 quarts at the most out. The second time I drained it, I did get a whole quart out, or a whole gallon out, which I was happy. I changed the angle. This, when I did it the first time, I had the front propped up on probably 8-inch ramps. The second one I had it pointed down, such as I do right now. It's downhill on the slope on the driveway. And so the third time, you know, took it out, drove it, and then this time when we got back from the grocery store, I was only able to get about 3 quarts out. Now I did spill some initially, so I imagine I was probably close to a gallon, but not entirely. Still wasn't happy with an aspect one, the color and such like that. So I did do it again real quick in the driveway just to get another whole gallon of distilled water through, and that's the last flush I did on it, or the last drain I should say. I want to show you what the real color is. You know, so you know, I thought it was red, the coolant, but I guess it is pink. But this is a diluted. Let me get a little bit closer on there. Let's see. This is a 50-50 mix of the Volkswagen. They call it G13, I guess, but it has a lot more numbers in the and letters in the parts name. And what this is the one on. This one is pure coolant. So right now, you know, as you see, I probably got about. This is probably about a pint. It's like in a 19 or 20 ounce bottle. This is probably just a little bit over a pint of 16 ounces. It is a little bit crushed, so it's not perfect. So it's probably right around 16, 17 ounces. This one is probably around about the same, about 8 or 9 ounces, because it is 50-50 with distilled water. So I'm gonna keep topping it off. I do hope, you know, once you get a real quick, you know, this is the full antifreeze. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish topping that off right there with the full antifreeze. Let's see here, a little bit of an angle, but you know, I did hit the hoses, did squeeze them to try to get some air moving around in there. You know, the thing is, I really hate putting pure 100% antifreeze in just by itself altogether. You know, just, you know, I will run it, make sure it runs before before it gets, I won't say it will get gelled or anything that quick, but you know, I just don't like to run it and put pure in all by itself straight. I do like to get a little bit of a mixture, but with the amount that this Jetta is requiring, being that it's a 10 quart system, I'm barely able to get 4 quarts out. You know, I'm just not being able to get it exactly, truly where I really want it on here. So I'm going to top it off. Have a little bit more. I'll keep my eye on it, and hopefully that, you know, the course of a couple days or so, that the bubbles all work out to allow me to, you know, to finish using this entire bottle, which will then be exactly 1 gallon of antifreeze. So that would be 4 quarts and out of a 10 quart system. I didn't put the shield back on yet for underneath. I'll show you the shield real quick. The reason being is I do hope to plan on getting in a doing the transmission next. So that's it, just a couple bolts to hold that on. The torque head, same size as what was required to take off the overflow bottle. But you know, on doing something that has been not done for quite some time. Yeah, let's get this bike out of the street. But something that has not been done in years. You know, with that discoloration, you do want to kind of get as much as you can out. You know, unfortunately, with, you know, just, you know, without being that we don't want to make a mess, and you know, I could have taken off the upper radiator hose and try to let it flush out that way and stuff like that, but then it would have just been a mess. And I like to be a little bit more neat and controlled the water flow and catch. But other than that, you know, wish everyone well, and I hope you got some good tips out of this video. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up real quickly here, because you know, you got to realize, you know, again last night when I let these containers sit with this, you know, with the coolant that was emptied out, you know, definitely that some of the particles settle, and then you could definitely see the different colors in you know, removing it. This is the first time, and again, you know, the one here, this is the first time, and the thing is that there was oil in there. This is with the original plus, and I changed containers, the catching containers. This is actually with the, you know, out of the 10 quart system, I put 3 quarts of distilled water in it. So that's, so this, you know, the original colors is probably just a little bit darker than that. But I want to get this down a little bit. Now I got good daylight. Let me get this plant out of the way. I have good daylight, and definitely you could kind of see, you know, with my last flush there, you know, there's distilled water by itself, but that last flush actually, yeah, it does look pretty, you know, got most of it out. It has a little bit of color into it, but not much. And what I'll show you is this because this one has oil, I'm gonna just show you what it looks like from underneath of all the sediment. So this is close to being the first flush here, and let's take a look at that sediment. Try to hold up to where the sun is. So we get a, I can't really tell with what's going on on my side of the lens, but let's take a look here. You get a picture of some of the sediment there. Yeah. And then the I think I'd label this the third flush, so you know, kind of see what it was coming out. You know, that rust color just settling, fine particles and some flakes in there, but definitely with that color, you know, with that rust settling, you definitely could see, you know, how clear the water is that I was doing. So this is the last flush. So, you know, kind of got a lot out, and you know, kind of happy with that. And you kind of see these three, get these 3 right here. Definitely a lighter color for the last flush whatsoever. You know, I looked today, and inside the water, inside the coolant overflow bottle, that you know, you can't really see it looking down that it's pink. However, with the light on one side of the bottle shining into the bottle, you know, with the cap off, you could look down and definitely you could see that really fine fluorescent, almost color pink in there. But that's it, kind of wrapped up, you know, on this Jetta S, I guess sedan. You know, I don't know all these models. I'm more of a Ford owner for the last 20 years, so